the pedo stash. Fucking ready. Okay. Hi everyone, Notony Melantano here, the internet's worst weeaboo bitch. And it's time for a review of the Sturgill Simpson fully anime visual album, Sound and Fury. This is the collaborative project from numerous directors and studios, but the biggest name to be found with regards to the project as a whole not only directs several segments, but also co-wrote the screenplay for the film with Sturgill Simpson himself, Junpei Mizusaki, whose previous work on Batman Ninja led to a thoroughly enjoyable, albeit nonsensical, experiment. The biggest standout feature for Junpei's directorial style during that film was his unique art style, opting to give harsher outlines to each character's design in order to emphasize the fact that it's being animated even as a fully CGI character model, as opposed to the sleeker look that's become popularized by much bigger and far more competent studios than virtually anything to come from Japan. This completely unique art style meant that when going into tracks like Sing Along, A Good Look, and Fastest Horse in Town, even without the knowledge that he was working on this project, it became apparent that this was his work. And considering how rare it is to find directors with their own completely unique style in the world of anime today, I can only consider that a good thing. Visually, this film is not afraid to experiment, not afraid to show different art styles, and not afraid to embrace the freedom that the directors have been given with regards to animating each song. This leads to several memorable segments of the film, as the mere juxtaposition of Make Art Not Friends to A Good Look means that the segment feels very experimental and unique before it even begins. Unfortunately for the film, the experimentation isn't always a good thing. The uneven distribution of who gets what tracks led the film feeling like a 15-minute Mizusaki short film mixed with a completely different AMV compilation thrown in to stretch out the running time. Those first few songs set up an epic fight between a samurai girl and two warlords, which is unceremoniously abandoned by the fourth track of the album. The only song prior to that point that wasn't directed, or at least inspired by Mizusaki, is the opening, completely CG segment of the film, which, even then, only really establishes the world the film takes place in and nothing else. This combined with the PS3 cutscene aesthetic led this to easily be the worst part of the film, and just a really horrible place to start things off. Then Mizusaki comes in and tells a simple but compelling story until we reach the best animated segment of the film, Make Art Not Friends, where this storyline is pretty much immediately abandoned before being immediately retrieved in Best Clockmaker on Mars, which is essentially a series of still shots explaining the girl's backstory. This is the last we get of the main narrative until after the end credits, which does give the conclusion of the only coherent narrative throughout the film, so make sure you watch the credits to the end, which should be fairly easy considering how The Fastest Horse in Town is an absolute banger. Now, while I do like AMV compilations, this led to the last half of the film being far less engaging than the introduction. Up to that point, a lot of the enjoyment from the film came down to the viewer trying to piece together how all of these different segments fit together with one another, which is mostly abandoned towards the second half because they already showed you how the film ends. That's not to say that the remaining tracks are bad. All Said and Done tells a fairly decent anti-slavery story. It's a real pity that I'm completely pro-slave.
And then I had the dumbass idea to go on a racist rant, because that's a running gag in Actually Fantano's comment section. But then I remembered that I'm showing my face and I want a possible job in the future, maybe. So, instead of looking at it as me pussying out, view this as an entirely planned out, weird, meta bit that I'm doing right now. My future employer will have no way of knowing one way or another. And if you are my future employer, then I can promise to give everyone just a little, just a little, a little kiss when they need it. Right on the lips. The lower part.
Following this, we have Last Man Standing, which is an animated segment framed in the first person. This is certainly a new way to present this art style in a portion of the film that, for the most part, is a great standalone piece. The only problem is that it's animating what is easily the worst track on the entire album. And while I don't exactly think it's a good song, I would never go so far as to claim that I hate or even dislike it. Last Man Standing is perfectly fine, which is kind of its problem. When compared to the rest of the songs, it's very underwhelming and short. I honestly forgot this was even a segment until I had to write it down for the script, despite thinking that it's a really cool section. It's just too short a song to leave any real emotional impact. Finally, Mercury in Retrograde, what is by far the most unique part of the film, while also being the most visually boring to look at. The segment has this unique blend of 2D and 3D animation that will lead to a great way to present credits at the start of some mid-2000s superhero movie. But as a completely unique piece, it gets really old really quickly. As you can probably tell by now, all of this culminates in a very disjointed experience, and while a lot of this could obviously come as a result of the different directors and studios involved in this project, I think that the biggest reason for this tone comes down to the album that these visuals are based off of. Songs will usually start without the preceding track having any conclusion at all. Does this make the album bad? No, far from it, but I would certainly be remiss not to point it out. That being said, the songs are the one aspect of the film that I haven't really discussed, and that's because I am far from a music critic and I don't want to embarrass myself. The only thing I can really say about the music is that I loved every song of the album, aside from Last Man Standing, where I do have to agree with actually Fantano that the production is trash for all the reasons he cited. Unlike him, however, I like what the song was trying to achieve, meaning that, like I said before, while I don't exactly think it's particularly good, I wouldn't go so far as to say that my emotions towards it are negative in any real sense of the word. Everything else, though, is pretty great, meaning that while I've done nothing but criticize the movie for the entire video, I still feel like it deserves a strong 6 to a light 7. Transition. Have you given this film a watch? Do you love it? Do you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best of the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. This video is the 25th in a series of daily uploads where I review some movies I missed over the last decade in the hopes of making the ultimate anime of the decade video. I'm reviewing Her Blue Sky next. Over here next to my head is another video you should check out. Hit that up or click the link to subscribe to the channel. Not Melantano, Sound and Fury, forever.